Chapter 76. Pay. Luo Jin and Yun Lang stood in the air. Luo Jin violently spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He used his torn sleeve to wipe his mouth, wiping away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Luo Jin's eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Yun Lang opposite him. He panted heavily as he raised his right hand towards Yun Lang and made a disdainful gesture. This disdainful gesture naturally angered Yun Lang. Ever since he had become an emperor, no one in the Lianyan mountain range dared to use such an attitude towards him. Today, Xiao Yan and Luo Jin could be said to have been repeatedly slapped in the face. How could he not be angry? Yun Lang let out a long roar towards the sky. His body suddenly disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Luo Jin. His right fist was tightly clenched as he threw a punch towards Luo Jin's face. Luo Jin's expression involuntarily changed in the face of this sudden attack. His heart instantly tightened and even his heart stopped for an instant. However, Luo Jin was not an ordinary cultivator. Although he could not defeat Yun Lang, he still had time to put up some defenses. The little dou qi in his body surged out and swiftly agglomerated into a thick circular shield in front of him, blocking Yun Lang's attack. However, it was clear that Luo Jin had still underestimated Yun Lang's strength. Although Yun Lang's strength had decreased by 50% after several intense battles, how could an 8-star half-martial emperor be so easy to deal with? Even though Yun Lang only possessed 50% of his strength, it was still not something that Luo Jin could withstand. The corner of Yun Lang's mouth involuntarily revealed a mocking smile when he saw the thin dou qi that surged out of Luo Jin's body. His body shook and the dou qi under his fist swiftly agglomerated into a substance, wrapping around his entire fist. Its might could be said to be world-shocking. It tore through the air in an instant. The powerful wind caused the air to emit waves of ear-piercing sonic booms. Wherever the wind from the fist passed, the air would tremble and the air would shatter. The entire world trembled because of this punch. Bang! There was no powerful dou technique. There was only a simple punch. However, when it came into contact with the dou qi shield, the nearly substance-like dou qi shield was blasted apart in a destructive manner. Luo Jin's final defense was ultimately of no use. After his defense was broken, Yun Lang's mighty punch did not slow down in the slightest as it charged towards Luo Jin's face. If this punch landed, Luo Jin would undoubtedly die. At this moment, Luo Jin's heart had calmed down. Although he had only been in contact with Xiao Yan for a short period of time, he could tell that there were many reasons behind Xiao Yan's desire to repair the heavy Xian ruler. It was also because of this that he had bitterly endured until now for Xiao Yan. He valued friendship, had extraordinary talent, and was possessed by the divine fire. Such a person would have a place in the Yuanwu continent sooner or later. Ah, brother Yan Xiao, goodbye. With a miserable smile, Luo Jin closed his eyes and waited for Yun Lang's punch to arrive. Swoosh. A thunder-like sonic boom suddenly sounded in the sky. Immediately, the dark clouds changed color and thunder clouds rolled. A wild and violent storm instantly engulfed the area. Yun Lang's punch, which was originally just inches away from Luo Jin's face, missed due to this thunder-like sound, causing the space in front of him to shatter with a bang. This aura belongs to that human from earlier. Yun Lang involuntarily frowned when his punch missed. Under the investigation of his powerful spiritual strength, the person who had arrived was Xiao Yan, who had sneaked into his cave. Xiao Yan supported Luo Jin with one hand and conveniently placed a medicinal pill into his mouth. After which, he found a green rock and allowed Luo Jin to lean against it. Under the swift recovery of the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill, Luo Jin slowly woke up. He glanced at Xiao Yan and the expression on his face suddenly turned to joy. Although he was still very weak, he knew that the current situation was urgent and did not have the time to say anything. All he could do was use a somewhat hoarse voice to softly say, "Brother Yan Xiao, it's not good to stay here for long. You should leave quickly. You won't be able to defeat that cloud-splitting wolf alone." Xiao Yan could not help but be startled when he heard this. It turned out that this fellow thought that he had come out to save him before he found the item. However, even though he thought this way, his heart was more moved by Luo Jin's words. Xiao Yan smiled slightly and told Luo Jin to relax and wait for him at his original spot. With a flash, Xiao Yan had already arrived 1,000 feet in front of Yun Lang. Humph. You human are really courting death. You actually dared to steal my treasure. See if I don't tear you to pieces today. Die for me. Xiao Yan laughed when he heard this. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and sneered with a mocking expression. Your item, heh. It was born from the heavens and the earth. How did it become your item? Moreover, natural treasures belong to the capable. Since you don't use it, don't blame me. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the anger in Yun Lang's heart grew. He could not help but laugh out of extreme anger. Good. Good. What a good belonged to the capable. What a sharp-tongued human. In that case, I want to see just how great your ability is that you are worthy of this heavenly demonic flower. Yun Lang's hand rotated before his voice sounded. The dou qi in his body instantly surged out of his body and gathered in his palm. It was repeatedly compressed. The turbulent dou qi around Yun Lang's body was like a wave that swept apart with Yun Lang in the middle. This part of the world was also covered by this wave. Yun Lang raised his right hand. Pure dou qi swiftly agglomerated in his palm. In merely a moment, a green jade-colored bead that was agglomerated from dou qi appeared in Yun Lang's palm. Soon after, Yun Lang's palm violently slammed downwards. Foresees wave. The spreading dou qi wave suddenly stilled as the palm struck down. It was as though time had forcefully stopped it. Soon after, however, a bright glow spread out from Yun Lang's palm in a lightning-like manner. Bang! The world was annihilated wherever the light passed. The hot sun did not have any light and the empty space instantly collapsed. Even though this was the case, it was merely the remnant force of this dou skill erupting. Surprise involuntarily flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes when he saw this. The strength of this dou skill was actually this strong. Not daring to underestimate it, Xiao Yan swiftly raised the dou qi within his body. He suddenly clenched his right hand and all the dou qi gathered in his palm. His eyeballs rotated and a glow flashed across the depths of his eyes. The strength of the heavenly flame in his body suddenly erupted. Hua Yi, who was seated cross-legged within Xiao Yan's vortex, suddenly emitted a dazzling glow. Immediately, a bang sounded and it merged with Xiao Yan. Ha! With an explosive cry, Xiao Yan's tightly clenched hand slowly relaxed. A thumb-sized dark black round appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. Xiao Yan's body suddenly shook. In an instant, Xiao Yan had already forcefully broken through Yun Lang's dou skill and arrived in front of Yun Lang. Yun Lang merely let out a cold laugh when he saw this. His left hand swiftly formed a seal. Soon after, a wolf howl was emitted from his mouth. It was the Dong Mountain Howl. Roar! The Dong Mountain Howl, which had an extraordinary strength, naturally subdued Xiao Yan with one blow. In his unconscious state, the current Xiao Yan was already equivalent to a fish on a chopping board, allowing Yun Lang to kill him as he pleased. Humph. With a sneer, Yun Lang's hand had already transformed into a huge wolf claw that violently grabbed toward Xiao Yan's head. With this claw, Xiao Yan would definitely die. Bang! Just as Yun Lang's wolf claw was about to strike Xiao Yan's head, Xiao Yan's right palm struck his chest first. Before the palm was completed, Xiao Yan's fist once again violently smashed into the already stunned Yun Lang's chest, sending him flying 1,000 miles away. Looking at Xiao Yan again, the current Xiao Yan had a pink demonic lotus deep within his pupils. There was a creamy white flame dancing repeatedly on top of the lotus, appearing extremely mysterious. The lotus disappeared and Xiao Yan's empty expression once again recovered its clarity. He gently shook his still giddy head and lowered his head to look at the scars left behind by the four seas. Xiao Yan involuntarily shivered. Even if he used the strength of the heavenly flame to defend himself with all his might, he was still unable to block it. Under the Dong Mountain Howl, Xiao Yan was naturally subdued until he lost his consciousness. However, Xiao Yan's loss of consciousness did not mean that Hua Yi was also subdued. With Hua Yi controlling his body, the great heaven creation palm in his palm naturally struck Yun Lang's body. Roar, roar. Rascal, you actually broke through to the 3-star half-martial emperor realm with the help of the heavenly imperial demonic flower. However, even so, you won't be able to escape death today. Also, that guy in your body, come out. Without giving Xiao Yan the slightest chance to react, Yun Lang suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yan from the horizon. His figure shook and transformed into his original form. His huge wolf claws viciously clawed at Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan's complexion suddenly changed. His figure dodged the attack. Before Xiao Yan could react, the cloud-splitting wolf's attack came again. Xiao Yan's footsteps constantly changed as he repeatedly used the sky extinction steps. In the distant horizon, a huge demonic beast could be seen pouncing everywhere. Waves of sonic booms reverberated between the heavens and the earth. Occasionally, a ferocious power would explode a mountain. This repeated again and again. The two of them had fought for over 700 exchanges. Xiao Yan's lightning-like frightening speed after his breakthrough caused Yun Lang, an 8-star bandit, to feel an extreme headache. The two of them exchanged blows and were actually unable to determine a victor. Vaguely, there seemed to be something brewing within Xiao Yan's sleeves. It was only waiting for Xiao Yan to completely unleash it with a single thought. The heavenly flame within his body separated and transformed in his palm. Finally, it transformed into the appearance of the heavy Xian ruler. As the huge fire ruler was swung, it carried a fiery aura that scorched the horizon. When the cloud-splitting wolf's claw attacked, Xiao Yan also met it with a ruler. The attacks of the two were large and powerful. Although Xiao Yan's strength was inferior to the cloud-splitting wolf, he was still able to forcefully suppress it with the heavenly flame. Hence, it was difficult to tell who would emerge victorious. This was a battle of attrition where Do Qi was used. Endurance would be the main factor in the battle until the end. Xiao Yan's body suddenly flashed in the midst of the battle. The stable battle situation was suddenly broken by this action of Xiao Yan's. Flaming devouring tsunami. An explosive cry sounded as the huge fire ruler in his hand slashed horizontally in front of him. A beautiful flame wave suddenly shot out from the end of the ruler and smashed toward the cloud-splitting wolf. The cloud-splitting wolf's expression did not change when it saw this. Its pair of extremely sharp wolf claws slashed through the air. A forked Do Qi swiftly shot out and collided with the flaming devouring tsunami, resisting it equally. Bang! An explosion sounded. A wild and ferocious hot flame wave suddenly spread apart, engulfing both Xiao Yan and the cloud-splitting wolf. From this, one could imagine just how great the strength of this explosion was. Just as the flame wave swept across the sky, the air wave in front of Xiao Yan instantly split into two at the spot where he stood. A dark black mysterious light pillar suddenly shot out and smashed toward the enormous body of the cloud-splitting wolf. The dark black light pillar appeared ordinary. However, the space quietly collapsed wherever it passed. Even the endless empty space was swallowed by it. This seemingly random attack would instantly overturn the entire battle situation. This scene caused even Luo Jin, who was resting on the green rock, to involuntarily shift his gaze over. Immediately, the pale expression on his face instantly turned into surprise. The cloud-splitting wolf, who was standing in front of Xiao Yan, was naturally the same. Luo Jin rolled his throat with great difficulty. His dry lips curled slightly as he cried out in surprise in his heart. Just what kind of Do technique is this? It can actually swallow empty space. Chapter 77. The dark black energy pillar randomly pierced through the empty space. In merely an instant, it had already arrived in front of Yun Lang's enormous body. Yun Lang naturally did not dare to underestimate this attack. A man-class Do technique was no joke. Even with his strength of an 8-star bandit, he had no choice but to use all his strength to face a man-class Do technique. Yun Lang's enormous body turned and once again turned into his human form. Only in this state would he be able to make the quickest response. Yun Lang knew that he could not dodge this attack and could only accept it. Yun Lang's eyelids involuntarily twitched as he looked at the black light pillar that was getting closer and closer, revealing the restlessness in his heart. Under the black light pillar, he could feel an extremely dense destructive force. This force was so strong that even the world would find it difficult to restrain it. Is it another man-class Do technique? Humph. I can see that the Do Qi in your body is already insufficient. You actually want to use a man-class Do technique to kill me. You are really dreaming. Yun Lang raised both of his hands before his voice sounded. The seals between his fingers changed rapidly. Numerous mysterious seals were thrown out one after another. The space in front of him also became distorted. The seemingly invisible space had become the most frightening defense at this moment. All the remaining Do Qi in Yun Lang's body poured out and gathered in his palm. His body also instantly became empty. A feeling of exhaustion and powerlessness rose in his heart. Yun Lang completely ignored this. He threw a palm forward and struck the space in front of him. The Do Qi in his palm seemed to have found a point to pour out and instantly filled the entire empty space. In an instant, a spherical Do Qi shield appeared around Yun Lang's body and covered him within it. However, this was not the end. This shield was actually absorbing the natural energy of this place and turning it into its own use. Big Dipper Guard. Xiao Yan's somewhat pale face immediately revealed a surprise when he saw this. He also had a new view of Yun Lang's strength. At this moment, Yun Lang had truly revealed all of his strength. It was not surprising for a bandit to control the world as his own. However, this place was ultimately the Yuanwu continent. The rule strength was different from the Do Qi continent. One still needed the strength of the Do D class in order to freely control the world. Currently, this Yun Lang was actually able to control a part of the world as his own aid. This kind of ability was really rare. It was likely impossible to control a part of the world at the bandit class if one did not possess sufficient talent. The true strength of this cloud-splitting wolf could be seen. The shield in front of Yun Lang had just quietly formed when the 10 feet wide dark black energy pillar collided with it. Silence. Even the rustling sound of leaves being blown by the wind had disappeared. The entire world had returned to silence, just like the beginning of the primal chaos. No aura of life could be sensed, nor were there any traces of death. There was only an empty silence. The world was shocked when the two came into contact. The strength of this force was so great that even the world did not dare to create the slightest disturbance. The dou qi within Xiao Yan's body was poured into his palm. A light flashed in his palm and the brilliant fireplate once again expanded. The dark black energy pillar also soared. A powerful and frightening strength suddenly erupted and eroded the shield. At the point where the Buddha's fury samsara collided with the shield, a terrifying tearing force was competing with each other. The black beam of light was constantly breaking down the world's energy above the shield, which was then devoured by the beam of light and turned into nourishment. The shield was also doing its best to swallow the natural energy in this place. The powerful tearing force turned all the natural energy within a 10,000 feet radius into a cluster of pure energy liquid that was suspended in the air above the shield. It was used to replenish the shield and resist the angry Buddha reincarnation. With the help of the natural energy, Yunlang was naturally incomparably relaxed. Although he appeared to be in a passive position, he was smiling as he looked at Xiao Yan as though he was watching a show. It was as though he could already see victory waving at him. In this way, Xiao Yan's aura finally became increasingly weak. The feeling of weakness in his body caused him to feel dizzy. However, his powerful spiritual strength continued to support him. Xiao Yan flipped his left hand, which had been idle all this while. A jade bottle appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. He crushed the jade bottle and over 10 Tier 9 energy recovery pills appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan stuffed all of them into his mouth. In an instant, turbulent pure dou qi surged into the vortex in Xiao Yan's body like a tidal wave. His exhausted dou qi was finally recovered. On the opposite side, Yunlang's eyebrows twitched slightly when he saw this scene. Immediately, his expression turned ruthless. The dou qi in his body poured out and he focused all of his attention on controlling the shield in front of him. He was incomparably clear in his heart that as long as he could block this attack from Xiao Yan, he would definitely be the final victor. Looking at Xiao Yan again, although he had the replenishment of the medicinal pills, they were after all only Tier 9 energy recovery pills. Regardless of how many there were, it was still a drop in the bucket for the current Xiao Yan. In an instant, the little dou qi that he had just recovered once again disappeared. This caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily feel a little emotional. I'm afraid that I will need to find some D-tier medicinal pill formulas to use. With my current strength, just relying on Tier 9 medicinal pills is far from enough. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes and stared at Yunlang, who was within the shield. The two of them looked at each other and the space suddenly became distorted. Even if a Bandi expert did not use dou qi, just a gaze was able to cause the space to change. A Bandi expert was indeed extraordinary. They were actually this strong. Yunlang laughed mockingly. His aura suddenly soared and his powerful spiritual strength moved with a bang. His spiritual strength possessed the strength of an 8-star Bandi. Just a mere pressure was enough to destroy all of Xiao Yan's aura. Such strength was indeed worthy of being an 8-star Bandi expert. Xiao Yan's originally solemn expression instantly became much warmer when he saw this. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a mocking smile. If it was a battle of dou qi with Xiao Yan, this point might make him extremely solemn. However, if it was a battle of spiritual strength, Xiao Yan could only laugh it off. Competing with an alchemist in terms of spiritual strength was like a skinny man wrestling with a giant. The outcome of the battle was naturally self-evident. When Yunlang's spiritual strength pressed down on Xiao Yan was not the slightest bit afraid. The spiritual strength in his body surged like the water of the Yellow River. In an instant, it condensed into a giant hand above Xiao Yan's head. With a thought from Xiao Yan, the giant hand that blotted out the sun instantly attacked and clashed head-on with Yunlang's spiritual strength. How terrifying was an alchemist's spiritual strength? Although Yunlang was an 8-star Bandi, his spiritual strength had only just advanced to the Emperor Realm. On the other hand, Xiao Yan had already advanced to the Emperor Realm 10 years ago. The gap between them could be imagined. Not good. This human's spiritual strength has already stepped into the Emperor Realm for many years. It is not something that I can contend with. Yunlang's heart was suddenly startled when he saw Ling Tian's giant hand. The expression on his face suddenly changed. A frightened glint flowed deep within his eyes. A thought passed through his mind, and he wanted to swiftly withdraw his spiritual strength. The change in expression on Yunlang's face was also captured by Xiao Yan. A cold smile was lifted from the corner of his mouth. The expression in his eyes suddenly became ruthless. Humph, do you think that it is still possible to retreat now? Emperor Realm Soul Skill, Towering Hand. Towering Hand. This was a soul skill that Xiao Yan had found from the countless scrolls left behind by the Tu Shi ancient god. It was the top soul skill in the entire Do Qi continent. Xiao Yan had also mastered it. This towering hand was also quite useful to Xiao Yan. Now that it was used, its strength was also quite shocking. With a cold laugh, the seals in Xiao Yan's left hand swiftly changed. An instant later, that Ling Tian's giant hand moved according to Xiao Yan's thoughts. It grabbed Yun Lang's vast and mighty wave-like spiritual strength in his hand. Yun Lang also appeared to have suffered a heavy blow. His white skinny face instantly became distorted, appearing extremely terrifying. Yun Lang's hands suddenly clenched tightly. He resisted the heart-piercing pain that originated from his soul. At the same time, he did not forget to control the shield in front of him to prevent Xiao Yan from taking advantage of the situation. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth curled. This Yun Lang was not stupid. He was even more clear-headed in the face of death. No wonder he was able to become the overlord of this Lianyun mountain range. With Yun Lang's spiritual strength restrained, Xiao Yan naturally felt a little more relaxed. Coupled with his mountain of energy recovery pills, the situation became a little more stable for a short period of time. In any case, Yun Lang was also the overlord of this area. His heart was filled with pride. How could he be willing to be controlled by Xiao Yan? Hardening his heart, all the muscles in his body tensed up like steel. He clenched his teeth and his eyes instantly turned abnormally scarlet. With a thought in his mind, a heaven-piercing roar sounded. The connection between Yun Lang and that portion of spiritual strength was finally forcefully severed. Roar. Damned human, die. Heavenly wolf howls at the moon, roar. With an earth-shaking furious roar, Yun Lang instantly transformed into his original form. He faced the sky and let out a long roar. Suddenly, the color of the sky changed. The bright day instantly turned into a dusky darkness. A bright moon stood in the clouds, emitting threads of cold light. In the darkness, there was an enormous silver-white wolf standing behind the cloud-splitting wolf. Waves of frightening aura spread from the cloud-splitting wolf's body, causing Xiao Yan's expression to instantly change. Even Luo Jin, who was on the ground, had a grave expression at this moment. This cloud-splitting wolf actually possesses the heavenly ability of the Howling Moon Wolf tribe, Sky Wolf Howling Moon. This is going to be troublesome. The Do Qi in Brother Yan's body is currently weak. It will be incomparably difficult for him to defeat the cloud-splitting wolf. This cloud-splitting wolf also has the help of this bright moon. The speed at which it recovers its Do Qi is definitely not something that Brother Yan can compare with. I'm afraid that this battle is going to be dangerous. Luo Jin clearly had a better understanding of this move of the cloud-splitting wolf. Even so, there was nothing he could do about it. Although Luo Jin had some understanding of the Sky Wolf Howling Moon, it was only a superficial understanding. There was nothing he could do. Moreover, he was currently seriously injured and was unable to help Xiao Yan. If he were to forcefully charge forward, it was likely that not only would he not be able to help Xiao Yan, but he would instead become a burden to Xiao Yan. Although he felt helpless in his heart, Luo Jin still transmitted what he knew to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan was naturally grateful for this. Although he did not know how to deal with the cloud-splitting wolf, his heart was at least somewhat confident. Hence, he was able to go all out when fighting. Xiao Yan sensed the gradually recovering aura on the cloud-splitting wolf's body. His heart involuntarily tightened. If this continued, it was likely that the cloud-splitting wolf would really be able to endure until the end. However, the medicinal pill replenishment was ultimately too little. No matter how one put it, the body of a bandit was not something that a Tier 9 medicinal pill could provide. His eyes flickered slightly. Although he felt a little reluctant in his heart, the situation dictated that if he did not use it, it was likely that he, Xiao Yan, would die here today. The tug-of-war between the angry Buddha reincarnation and the Big Dipper guardian continued. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the fire seal between his brows flickered. Soon after, a cluster of dark black flames flew out from between Xiao Yan's brows and landed in Xiao Yan's palm. A frightening suction force spread from around the dark black flame the moment it appeared. All the medium in the sky moved with it and was forcefully sucked over. After which, it disappeared with a flash on the surface of the flame. Luo Jin's anxious and grave expression changed instantly when he saw this flame. His expression turned into a rich shock when he looked at the flame in Xiao Yan's hand. This is a heavenly flame. This is the second on the heavenly flame ranking, the Nihility Devouring Flame. Chapter 78. The Nihility Devouring Flame was a heaven-defying existence ranked second on the heavenly flame ranking. However, He had never expected that such a powerful independent existence would actually be within Xiao Yan's body. If news of this were to spread, it was likely that the entire continent would be in an uproar. Huh? That's not right. Although this heavenly flame possesses the aura of the nihility devouring flame, the might of this flame and its devouring strength is far from being able to devour the world. A trace of doubt rose within Luo Jin's heart as he looked at the nihility devouring flame in Xiao Yan's hand in the sky. This cluster of nihility devouring flame was definitely not the essence of a heavenly flame. The expression in Luo Jin's eyes, which were looking at Xiao Yan, once again changed wildly when he thought of this. His eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan. His expression was filled with endless surprise. This flame, this flame is actually a wisp of the essence flame of the nihility devouring flame. It should be known that if Xiao Yan was able to completely devour and subdue the nihility devouring flame, it would only mean that Xiao Yan possessed extraordinary talent. In fact, such a heaven-defying thing was willing to follow him. However, this heavenly flame was merely a wisp of the essence flame of the nihility devouring flame. Although its strength was much weaker than the actual body, if Xiao Yan had relied on his own strength to obtain it from the actual body, it would really be enough to shock one's soul. Being ranked second on the heavenly flame ranking, how could the nihility devouring flame allow its essence flame to be taken by another? However, Xiao Yan was actually able to obtain a wisp of it. How could this not cause one to feel shocked? The strength of the nihility devouring flame was something that the entire continent was clearly aware of. Xiao Yan's attempt to forcefully obtain it was simply wishful thinking. Yet, Xiao Yan had actually taken out a wisp of the essence flame of the nihility devouring flame. This meant that Xiao Yan possessed a frightening talent that could cause the nihility devouring flame to be willing to give in to him. The cloud-splitting wolf, who was standing in front of Xiao Yan, was also surprised and uncertain. Its pair of bell-sized blood-colored eyes had been staring intently at the dark black flame ever since Xiao Yan had taken it out. It could sense an extremely frightening strength within the seemingly insignificant flame. That strength was sufficient to destroy this world in one strike. Xiao Yan held the nihility devouring flame in his hand and stood in the empty space in front of him. His heart suddenly recalled the black flame that had disappeared into the sky. That fellow. Old Bone said that he would obtain a good fortune. I wonder how he is doing now. However, I think that he should be doing better than me. Hee hee. Haha. Xiao Yan sighed in his heart. After which, he focused his attention on the nihility devouring flame in front of him. Although his heart was unwilling, he had no other choice given the current situation. An incomparably powerful spiritual strength entered the essence of the heavenly flame like a celestial thread. The frightening temperature, which could incinerate everything in the outside world, appeared to be nothing in front of Xiao Yan at this moment. His spiritual strength poured into the heavenly flame and swiftly found the spiritual imprint that he had left behind in the past. After hesitating for a moment, a thought passed through his mind. That spiritual imprint slowly disappeared in front of Xiao Yan's eyes. Although this scene was not seen by the cloud-splitting wolf and Luo Jin, they were able to roughly guess what had happened from the change in the aura of the heavenly flame. Xiao Yan had actually cut off the thread of connection with the nihility devouring flame in his hand. Damn it. Is this fellow crazy? That is the nihility devouring flame. How can he bear to just let it go? At this moment, even Luo Jin involuntarily spouted vulgar words in his heart. Xiao Yan's actions were really a great blow. Bang. A muffled sound appeared. Xiao Yan's spiritual strength was naturally withdrawn. The aura of the nihility devouring flame in his hand suddenly erupted. A burning will instantly filled the entire sky. The endless empty space suddenly became distorted. Luo Jin also instantly felt as though he had been thrown into a furnace at this moment. The skin on the surface of his body swiftly turned bright red, causing him to have no choice but to maneuver the little do qi within his body to do his best to resist. The strength of the heavenly flame was actually this powerful. It was merely a 10 millionth of its actual body, yet it was actually able to stir an unusual phenomenon in the sky. This strength could be said to be terrifying. The moment Xiao Yan cut off his connection with the heavenly flame in his hand, in a dark and mysterious space tens of thousands of kilometers away. A black human figure, whose entire body was burning with a dark black flame and whose body was covered with mysterious symbols, suddenly opened his gently shut eyes. He looked in the direction where Xiao Yan was located. Has he cut off his connection with me? In this way, there will be a lot of trouble in the future. However, this is just as well. Allow me to see if you, Flame Emperor, have the strength to force me to lower my head. From his words, this person was He Yen, who had disappeared into the sky after becoming an emperor back then. The strength of the heavenly flame completely erupted after the connection with the nihility devouring flame was severed. The endless devouring strength even devoured the empty space, turning it into a dark black void. Xiao Yan had controlled this wisp of heavenly flame essence for many years. Even though he had cut off his connection with it, it still danced gently in Xiao Yan's hand. Dou Qi suddenly surged from Xiao Yan's hand. Half of the little Dou Qi within his body was poured into the heavenly flame by Xiao Yan. With the support of Xiao Yan's Dou Qi, the nihility devouring flame burned even more intensely. The entire place instantly became dry and hot. The originally tender green grass and trees on the ground were instantly turned into a pile of dust. Threads of natural energy visible to the naked eye appeared to have been guided by something. They wildly gathered toward the nihility devouring flame in Xiao Yan's hand. Hua Yi, I will leave the refinement to you. Xiao Yan spoke to Hua Yi in his heart. After which, he placed his attention on the angry Buddha reincarnation in his hand. The cloud-splitting wolf's heart involuntarily tightened when he saw the surging natural energy around Xiao Yan's body. It was unexpected that Xiao Yan actually possessed such a technique. If Xiao Yan really succeeded, it was likely that this big battle would be really dangerous. Bright moon attracting star. A long roar was emitted towards the sky. The bright moon in the sky suddenly emitted a bright light. Soon after, a moonlight strength descended from the sky like a bright meteor and landed on the surface of the cloud-splitting wolf's body. The aura of the cloud-splitting wolf suddenly soared. The exhausted Dou Qi within its body also began to swiftly recover. One could see the cloud-splitting wolf once again emitting a howl towards the sky. That endless moonlight strength was like a waterfall of stars that was completely swallowed into its mouth. Soon after, a frightening aura of destruction was emitted from its mouth. Wolf howl 9 heavens, 8 wastelands destruction. Die. Xiao Yan saw a bright white light cluster the size of a planet from the cloud-splitting wolf's mouth the moment it lowered its head. The bright light cluster suddenly erupted when it was aimed at Xiao Yan's angry Buddha reincarnation. A glaring light pillar suddenly shot out from its mouth. It instantly shattered the celestial barrier and violently collided with Xiao Yan's angry Buddha reincarnation. In an instant, Xiao Yan's angry Buddha reincarnation was easily shattered by that light pillar. Xiao Yan's body, which was standing in the air, was involuntarily pushed back by 1,000 feet by this powerful force. That bright white light pillar also charged forward with an unstoppable force until it was 100 feet in front of Xiao Yan. Only then did it slowly come to a stop. Even so, Xiao Yan was already completely exhausted. The devouring and refining of Hua Yi behind him was indeed not enough. His strength was not at the level of a Ban Emperor. All the devouring and replenishing was useless to Xiao Yan. Ha 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 ha. Human. This is the result of provoking me, Yun Lang. You are just like an ant when fighting with me. Unfortunately, you are too arrogant. Don't think that you can fight with an expert who far surpasses you just because you have some strength and tactics. You must remember this point well. Remember not to provoke me, Yun Lang, in your next life. Ha 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 ha. Human, die. The cloud-splitting wolf looked at Xiao Yan, who was already at the end of his rope and could not help but feel refreshed in his heart. Today, he would definitely use the blood of Xiao Yan and Luo Jin to wash away his anger. The cloud-splitting wolf once again let out an earth-shaking howl. The bright white light pillar in his mouth suddenly shook. The strength within it became even more terrifying. The light pillar, which had just stopped, once again charged forward. The angry Buddha reincarnation would definitely be broken. Xiao Yan exhaled a long breath of turbid air in this moment of desperation. He looked at the approaching bright white light pillar and used a pleading tone to speak to Gu Yu in his heart. Elder Gu Yu, this junior knows that you will uphold your duty and will definitely not help this junior deal with the enemy. However, this junior has a request today. I hope that elder can agree to it. Gu Yu could not help but feel a little curious when he heard this. As long as it did not violate his duty, it was fine to borrow something. However, the key was that he did not have anything to borrow. Feeling helpless, Gu Yu involuntarily asked Xiao Yan, tell me what you want. What do you want to borrow? If I have it, it is fine even if I lend it to you as long as it does not violate my duty. Xiao Yan's eyes brightened when he heard this. His heart involuntarily sighed in relief. His pale face finally became a little warmer. Elder, this junior wishes to borrow your bone-chilling flame. Gu Yu's eyes changed slightly as he involuntarily cried out in surprise. However, he quickly laughed. I have nearly forgotten that you still have your strongest Do skill, the angry Buddha lotus flame. Ha ha, as long as you possess a sufficiently powerful heavenly flame, forget about a man-class Do skill. It is likely that you will not even need to worry about a higher-class Do skill. A cluster of dense white flames appeared in front of Xiao Yan before his voice sounded. Xiao Yan thanked Gu Yu in his heart upon seeing this. After which, he once again focused his eyes on the nihility devouring flame. Xiao Yan widened his large mouth and a wild and violent suction force was emitted from it. He swallowed the nihility devouring flame. The flame art-chi method within his body was swiftly circulated. Within a couple of breaths, the natural energy around Xiao Yan had been completely swallowed by Xiao Yan. Ha! Angry Buddha reincarnation, explode. Xiao Yan's face gradually recovered its rosiness as he sensed the abundant dou qi within his body. His right palm suddenly shook and a surging dou qi suddenly shot out. The dark black light pillar trembled for a moment under the enormous force before it suddenly exploded at the end. The white light pillar was also forcefully shattered into a countless number of pieces by this vast and mighty force. An instant later, a wild and violent heat wave that incinerated the sky suddenly swept over the place. This time around, the cloud-splitting wolf was a lot smarter. Having suffered once, it was only natural that it would not suffer a second time. The large wolf head let out a long howl towards the sky. An endless amount of moonlight scattered down from the bright moon. Immediately, it was swallowed by the cloud-splitting wolf. On the other side, Xiao Yan controlled the bone-chilling flame with one hand and threw the nihility-devouring flame with the other. A thought passed through his mind and the heavenly flames within his body suddenly poured out. 4 clusters of flames appeared in front of Xiao Yan. Bone-chilling flame, nihility-devouring flame, purifying demonic lotus flame. The last cluster of flames, D-flame. The angry Buddha lotus flame this time around would definitely be the most powerful combination Xiao Yan had ever created since he had created the angry Buddha lotus flame. The top 3 heavenly flames on the heavenly flame ranking, Gu Yu, and the bone-chilling flame, would become Xiao Yan's strongest killing move. Is this really going to work? You've never tried it before. Moreover, given the current condition of your body, can you really do it? Hui Yi's voice was suddenly transmitted from the side, causing Xiao Yan's expression to pause. He naturally felt an incomparable pressure when he held such an enormous strength in his hand. The dou qi that Xiao Yan had refined earlier was not pure enough due to time. Hence, it would be even more difficult for Xiao Yan to merge the heavenly flames. Xiao Yan did not dare to hesitate even a little. Although Hui Yi's words were true, the current situation was like this. If Xiao Yan did not go all out, only death would await him. However, Xiao Yan's heart was not limited to this. There were even more mysterious places in the Yuanwu continent that were waiting for him to unearth. How could Xiao Yan be willing to stay in this place? Gu Yu's duty, the black-robed person's pursuit. These were all questions that Xiao Yan had in his heart. Was it fate or a trap for him to become an emperor? Why was the black-robed person so familiar with him? These were all questions that Xiao Yan was most unwilling to accept. Hence, he must continue walking down this path. Sooner or later, he would part the clouds and see the source of everything. Chapter 79. Xiao Yan flipped his hands. After which, he violently slapped them together and forcefully merged the nihility-devouring flame and the bone-chilling flame. The collision of the 2 types of heavenly flames caused the space around Xiao Yan to fluctuate intensely. The powerful strength that erupted from the forceful merger caused the web between Xiao Yan's thumb and index finger to crack a little. Traces of fresh blood had yet to seep out when they were swiftly dried and formed into scabs by the frighteningly high temperature. At this moment, Xiao Yan did not have the mood to bother about this. His frightening spiritual strength poured out as he tried his best to control the heavenly flames in his hand. He tried his best to stabilize them at an equilibrium point. The 2 types of heavenly flames were finally gradually merged together by Xiao Yan. The strength of the heavenly flames caused Xiao Yan to feel as though this was the first time he was undergoing the merger process. Although he was familiar with it, he was also a little unfamiliar with it. The 2 types of heavenly flames were completely outside of Xiao Yan's control. If it was not because of Xiao Yan's frightening spiritual strength, it was likely that he would have difficulty succeeding. The difficult first step of the merger process was finally completed. Xiao Yan extended his hand and beckoned. The purifying demonic lotus flame and the god flame were swung over. These 2 types of heavenly flames were after all heavenly flames that Xiao Yan had already refined. Hence, there was not the slightest difficulty in merging them. Although he was still a little unfamiliar with the control, it would not be difficult for him to use the angry Buddha lotus flame in the future if he succeeded. A moment later, the 2 clusters of heavenly flames appeared in front of Xiao Yan. Without pausing, Xiao Yan's powerful spiritual strength wrapped around the 2 clusters of heavenly flames. At this moment, even Xiao Yan had great difficulty controlling these 2 clusters of heavenly flames. If he was careless, he would end up being turned into ashes. The 2 clusters of heavenly flames slowly approached each other in Xiao Yan's palm. Their desire to devour each other caused the 2 clusters of heavenly flames to gradually become more intense even though they were under Xiao Yan's control. Grug. The powerful strength of the heavenly flames caused the blood within Xiao Yan's body to churn. Xiao Yan involuntarily spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Fresh blood had just been spat out from Xiao Yan's mouth when the blazing heavenly flame welcomed it with a bang. The bright red blood instantly turned into nothingness. Damn it. If this continues, the consequences will be unimaginable. Xiao Yan forcefully controlled the heavenly flame in his palm. The veins all over his body bulged as he clenched his teeth. A series of creaking sounds came from between his teeth. His forehead was also dripping with sweat. It could be seen just how much pressure Xiao Yan was under. Ha! Emperor Flame, melt. With an explosive cry in his heart, Xiao Yan's expression suddenly became ruthless. His entire person became crazy. His hands suddenly clapped together and the heavenly flames in his palms collided with each other. The energy that erupted from the collision between the two types of heavenly flames caused Xiao Yan's arms to tremble involuntarily. A wave of numbness instantly assaulted his heart. His entire body shook as he forcefully dispelled the numbness. The strength in his palm soared once again as his spiritual strength completely wrapped around the heavenly flame in his palm. The powerful heavenly flame continuously swept out. The clothes on Xiao Yan's upper body instantly turned into nothingness. The intense temperature caused even Xiao Yan's heart to feel a wave of scorching heat. In an instant, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly turned crimson red. A few seals were continuously formed in his hands as the heavenly flames in his palms once again violently slammed together. This wild and ferocious heavenly flame finally slowly stabilized as it did its final fusion in Xiao Yan's palm. Roar! Human! Your destiny has come to an end. Today is the day you die. Die. Ha 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 ha. Remember, don't ever meet me in your next life. Otherwise, I will destroy you once again. Heavenly wolf howls at the moon. Die. Before the angry Buddha lotus flame appeared, another sky wolf moon howl was once again violently smashed toward Xiao Yan. If this attack were to hit, Xiao Yan would definitely die. At this critical moment, Xiao Yan ceased hesitating. Both of his hands abruptly clenched the heavenly flame in his palm. As the flame shot out, the heavenly flame that had just stabilized once again erupted. Seeing this, Xiao Yan violently bit the tip of his tongue with his teeth. A mouthful of essence blood was spat onto the heavenly flame. The seals in his hands swiftly changed as he forcefully stabilized the angry Buddha lotus flame. The brutal aura was violently suppressed within the fire lotus. The fusion of the heavenly flame was finally completed. The abundant do qi within Xiao Yan's body once again became empty. At this moment, the white light pillar, which contained an even more destructive aura than before, finally arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan did his best to focus his attention on the light pillar. The waves of weakness that were emitted from his body caused him to feel a little giddy. His entire body, which was standing high in the sky, was also a little shaky. At this moment, Xiao Yan felt as though his spirit was no longer under his control. His teeth violently bit the tip of his tongue. The intense pain that was transmitted from his nerves caused Xiao Yan to temporarily recover. He used all his strength to control the fire lotus in his palm. The fire lotus was formed. A faint cream-white flame seedling danced and rotated on the lotus leaves. The current angry Buddha lotus flame was already very different on the surface compared to before. From the inside to the outside, the fire lotus was divided into 4 layers. Based on their color, they were cream-white, dense white, pink, and black. Looking at it this way, there was not much change compared to before. However, just how strong it was could only be determined in the upcoming battle. In an instant, the white light pillar was already only a couple of feet away from Xiao Yan. At this moment, the vision high in the sky had already been greatly expanded. Luo Jin, who was on the ground, could not help but be greatly alarmed in his heart when he saw this scene. He hurriedly shouted toward Xiao Yan. Brother Yan Xiao, it's dangerous. Dodge quickly. Xiao Yan turned his head and smiled at Luo Jin when he heard this. Immediately, he turned back and gathered all the strength in his body onto his arms. Xiao Yan's eyes were indifferent as he looked at the white light pillar that was close at hand. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Immediately, both of his hands pushed forward with great force. Go, angry Buddha lotus flame. Let him witness the strength of the merger of 4 peak heavenly flames. I may not lose this battle. The cloud-splitting wolf let out a cold beast roar when he saw this. It was as though he was expressing the disdain in his heart. It was merely a small fire lotus. To him, it did not even have any meaning to attack. How could it hurt him? It was merely a joke. With regards to this, Xiao Yan chose to ignore it. As for how strong it was, he would naturally find out after a while. Xiao Yan's body suddenly became weak after the fire lotus was pushed forward. He staggered and nearly fell from the sky. This scene caused Luo Jin to be extremely anxious. The drifting fire lotus did not appear to possess any threatening intent. However, from the point that the area where it passed turned into an endless empty space, the interior of this seemingly harmless fire lotus possessed a frightening might that could shake the world. The fire lotus and the white light pillar suddenly collided. The wild and violent explosion that should have occurred did not appear. On the contrary, it was an invisible battle between the two. However, ever since the fire lotus made contact with the light pillar, the heart of the cloud-splitting wolf was replaced by an endless fear. The disdain and cold smile from earlier had completely disappeared at this moment. All that was left was a terrified heart. No. 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 Impossible. The strength of this fire lotus, how is it possible? It has already reached the high level of the man-class Do technique. High-level man-class Do technique. Just the word high level was already sufficient to cause most people to be shocked. What did a high-level man-class Do technique represent? It was the existence at the peak of the man-class Do techniques. A high-level man-class Do technique could destroy mountains and rivers with one strike, destroy the world with one strike. This was the might of a high-level man-class Do technique. Normally speaking, any practitioner who possessed a high-level man-class Do technique would have an unwritten rule restricting them. That was that they were not allowed to randomly use a high-level man-class Do technique. If they insisted on using it, they must do so in the endless empty space. Otherwise, they would be forcefully restrained by a strong person and lose their freedom. Even their memories regarding the Do technique would be wiped away. Therefore, there would naturally be no one who was willing to do so. Hence, they would abide by this unwritten rule. From this, one could see just how frightening a high-level man-class Do technique was that even the strong people of the continent would do their best to suppress it. Luo Jin looked at the beautiful fire lotus. His heart was also extremely shaken. Xiao Yan's strength had repeatedly struck his heart. Set after set of man-class Do techniques, the protection of the fire spirit, and the favor of the heavenly flame. This kind of status was really enough to deal a blow to others. Who the hell is this guy? Even those 3 clans have never heard of such a strong younger generation member. He is really a monster. Xiao Yan's endless tactics had already caused Luo Jin to be somewhat numb. The corner of his mouth twitched violently a couple of times. His face was stupefied as he looked at Xiao Yan. In his heart, he had already made up his mind. No matter what, he could not use common sense when facing Xiao Yan in the future. Otherwise, he would really be frightened to death. The white light pillar continued to break apart in front of the angry Buddha lotus flame. Immediately, it disappeared into the sky. The fire lotus ignored the existence of the white light pillar and directly penetrated it, drifting toward the enormous body of the cloud-splitting wolf. Roar. No. Human, sir, you can't do this. A high-level man-class Do technique must be used in the air and cannot be used in this world. If you do this, you will be chased to death by the strong people of the continent. If you want to live, you should quickly stop. If this is the case, I am also willing to turn weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk with you. You can take the Heavenly Imperial Demon Flower, Heavenly Imperial Jade Essence, and Falling Flame Mysterious Iron. I will also allow you and your friend to leave. From now on, we will not know each other and live our own lives. Are you willing? At this moment, the cloud-splitting wolf's heart was finally alarmed. The strength of the angry Buddha lotus flame caused him, an 8-star-ban emperor, to have no choice but to lower his head to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's body swayed slightly. However, the corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile. Forget about the fact that he was currently unable to withdraw the angry Buddha lotus flame. Even if he had the ability, why would he do so? Could it be because of the unwritten rule of the continent? Haha, so it's like this. I am also a little tempted after hearing this. The cloud-splitting wolf's heart involuntarily moved when he heard Xiao Yan's words. A glint flickered in his eyes. As long as Xiao Yan was able to withdraw this fire lotus, the cloud-splitting wolf was confident that he could kill Xiao Yan in an instant. At that time, forget about the Heavenly Imperial Jade Essence, even the things on Xiao Yan's body would belong to him. However, just as this thought flashed across his mind, the cold smile on Xiao Yan's face became increasingly dense. His pale face carried a playful smile as Xiao Yan continued to speak. It's a pity. Oh. What's a pity? The cloud-splitting wolf took the opportunity to ask. Xiao Yan continued. Once the angry Buddha lotus flame is unleashed, it cannot be withdrawn. Destroying everything is its final outcome. Therefore, please accept it. Before his voice sounded, the cloud-splitting wolf's expression had already been replaced by endless fury and killing intent. You tricked me. Xiao Yan did not pay any attention to this. With a thought, a sentence drifted out from his mouth. Angry Buddha Lotus Flame, explode. Chapter 80. Angry Buddha Lotus Flame, explode. It was a light sentence. There were only a few words, but in an instant, it caused the entire world to rumble and tremble violently. The empty space within a radius of 5,000 kilometers shattered. The mountains and rivers were destroyed. All life was turned into nothingness. The endless mountains and rivers were also shattered like a mirror in an instant. In merely an instant, the entire place disappeared from this space. The unusual natural phenomenon that was created by the sky wolf howling moon also shattered with a loud bang. Everything had turned into the most primitive darkness. Luo Jin, who was standing on the ground, had already flown into the empty space. At this moment, he had clearly used all his strength to unleash his trump card. In merely a couple of breaths' time, he had arrived beside Xiao Yan. Bang! Within the empty space, the outer layer of the wash basin-sized fire lotus, which was a layer of dark black like nothingness, finally appeared to be unable to endure the continuous trembling of this space. It gently fell down and broke off from the entire lotus flower. This scene caused the cloud-splitting wolf, which had originally lost all of its life aura, to instantly regain its senses. Its scarlet eyes, which had dimmed, abruptly shot out a ray of light. Ha 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 ha. I originally thought that this was a frightening high-level Mando technique. It turns out that it is merely a failed product with an empty appearance. Ha 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 ha. You bold human actually dared to deceive me time and time again. See if I don't completely destroy you today and turn you into ashes. I will take revenge for the hatred in my heart. The temperature of the entire space suddenly fell when these sharp and vicious words were emitted. It caused one to feel a chill. It also allowed one to feel the viciousness of this cloud-splitting wolf. The change of the angry Buddha lotus flame also caused Xiao Yan's heart to involuntarily tremble. The angry Buddha lotus flame that he had spent a great deal of effort in order to succeed had really scattered in such a casual manner. However, the next moment, the dark black lotus petals began to revolve around the fire lotus after all of them fell. Its speed became increasingly faster. In merely a couple of breaths, it had already surpassed the speed of sound. Within the space, there were some invisible black light spots that gathered toward the fire lotus. Unknowingly, Xiao Yan also felt a very strange feeling in his heart. A trace of his spiritual strength was being drawn out uncontrollably. Although it was forcefully extracted, Xiao Yan did not feel the slightest bit of pain. It was as if the spiritual strength was released from his body by itself. As Xiao Yan's spiritual strength left his body, endless black light spots gathered at the center of the fire lotus. Mixed within them was a trace of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength. The strange energy continued to change within the fire lotus. This scene caused Xiao Yan and the cloud-splitting wolf to be somewhat entranced. This was the first time they had seen a do skill not explode after being used. Even so, no one present dared to act rashly. Who knew if this thing would suddenly explode? At that time, no one would be able to escape. Only Luo Jin's still pale face had become somewhat solemn. His eyes would occasionally drift toward Xiao Yan by the side. His heart was filled with shock. This was because the current situation was the time when a do skill transformed into a spirit and formed the will of its creator's soul. Once this step was completed, this human-class do skill would be the true pinnacle creation. It was common knowledge that once a human-class do skill was used, it would agglomerate the spiritual illusionary figure of its creator. On one hand, it would increase the strength of the do skill. On the other hand, it could be considered a memorial to the predecessors. However, not every human-class do skill could possess this spiritual illusionary figure. This was because if the creator's ability was insufficient, it would be impossible to agglomerate that illusionary figure. Hence, although there were many human-class do skills, there were very few true human-class do skills. How could it be so easy to create a pinnacle do skill? If one did not have sufficient talent and willpower, it was likely that one would not be able to create a true human-class do skill regardless of how strong one was. This fellow is a little exaggerated. At this moment, even the corner of Luo Jin's mouth twitched involuntarily. The gaze he used to look at Xiao Yan was like he was looking at a monster. A moment later, the black-colored light spot within the fire lotus gradually stabilized. Xiao Yan's and the cloud-splitting wolf's expressions were startled when they looked at it from a distance. The shape that the light spot had stabilized was surprisingly a human-shaped illusory figure. Just as he was about to open his mouth and ask Luo Jin by the side, the expression on Xiao Yan's face changed once again. In an instant, the gaze he used to look at the human-shaped illusionary figure had also changed. In Xiao Yan's eyes, the human-shaped illusionary figure was surprisingly his own appearance. This is... Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed. The shock in his heart actually caused him to be unable to express his words clearly. Luo Jin, by the side, helplessly smiled. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. He used an envious gaze to look at Xiao Yan. His tone completely revealed his current mood. That's a Do skill spirit transformation. Only now can your Do skill be considered a genuine high human class Do skill. His voice was not loud. However, it caused the expressions of Xiao Yan and the cloud-splitting wolf to instantly change. There was naturally no need to say anything more about Xiao Yan. His face was filled with excitement. The current him could finally be considered a grandmaster. As for the cloud-splitting wolf, the aura that had just recovered was instantly extinguished by Luo Jin's words, like a red-hot piece of iron that was suddenly thrown into ice water. Do skill spirit transformation, no, I can't accept this. It's absolutely impossible. How could a human like you, who has just advanced to a 3-star half-emperor, be able to create a Do skill spirit transformation? Impossible. This must be a lie that you purposely made up because you don't have the confidence to kill me in one strike. It's all in order to deceive me and make me lose confidence. After which, you'll borrow this already failed human class Do skill to kill me in one strike. Am I right? How could your tricks deceive me, a grand 8-star half-emperor? Ha 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 ha. Wanting to kill me is simply wishful thinking. Under the fierce bombardment of the Do skill spirit transformation, the cloud-splitting wolf's heart was actually forcefully suppressed. It gradually became intense and crazy. In its heart, it continued to imagine the glory when it killed Xiao Yan and Luo Jin. However, it did not know that reality was reality. Regardless of how much it did not believe in its heart, the cloud-splitting wolf would not be able to escape death today. Ha 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 ha. What's wrong? You're not confident now that I've guessed correctly? Come. Do skill spirit transformation. Peak of a high human class Do skill. Come and kill me. If it's not enough, I'll just turn into a human again. Ha 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 ha. As it laughed crazily, the cloud-splitting wolf once again turned into a human. Its arms were wide open and its face was filled with an insufferably crazy appearance. It caused people who saw it to involuntarily emit a disdainful sneer. Xiao Yan and Luo Jin also involuntarily shook their heads. With such a mental state, it was likely that even if they really let him off, this would be the end of it in this life. The corner of Luo Jin's mouth twitched slightly. He once again glanced at Xiao Yan by the side. His expression was somewhat unnatural. Immediately, he glanced at Yun Lang, who had already become crazy, and involuntarily sighed in his heart. It is really unexpected that someone has already been frightened to the point of becoming crazy by this fellow after just getting acquainted with him. I really don't know how to interact with him in the future. Xiao Yan coldly smiled. A thought flashed across his heart. The fire lotus that was suspended in the air suddenly hurriedly rushed toward the cloud-splitting wolf. On the other hand, Xiao Yan quietly stood on the spot, watching everything that was about to happen. Bang! A powerful airwave that could destroy the empty space suddenly swept apart. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the airwave automatically separated from Luo Jin. However, that frighteningly high temperature still caused Luo Jin's heart to be extremely afraid. Before the first wave of air dissipated, another wave of air swept out in all directions from the center of the explosion. Everywhere it passed, the earth turned into an endless abyss. Beyond the clouds, the scorching sun that hung in the sky was like an old light bulb, dim and lightless. The sunlight that was originally enough to illuminate the entire sky also seemed to have plunged into an endless abyss, and was nowhere to be seen. The pitch-black space looked even more deep and empty. This world had already completely deviated from the Yuanwu continent. Everything belonged to another world. Nothingness, deathly stillness, as if it was chaos. Boom. The hot flame wave suddenly swept past the bodies of Xiao Yan and Luo Jin. This was merely the explosion of the third level. However, at this moment, only Xiao Yan's and Luo Jin's auras remained within a 5,000-kilometer radius. As the raging flame blasted past, a powerful pressure that could shake the heaven and earth suddenly pressed down from this side of the world. Not good. Luo Jin, be careful. Although Xiao Yan was unaffected, Luo Jin was instantly smashed down by the pressure. Even with Xiao Yan's warning, it was of no use. In the face of absolute power, there was no such thing as being careful. Given Luo Jin's heavily injured body, if not for the fact that the ground below had already turned into an abyss, just the pressure alone would have been enough to instantly crush him into nothingness. Xiao Yan naturally wanted to resist this pressure and protect Luo Jin. Unfortunately, the strength of this pressure was no longer something that Xiao Yan could control as he pleased. Even as its owner, it was impossible for him to completely control this angry Buddha lotus flame with his current strength. Being able to prevent himself from being affected was already the best outcome for Xiao Yan after he had gained control of the angry Buddha lotus flame. After a couple of flashes, Xiao Yan had already appeared beside the falling Luo Jin. He used one hand to forcefully pull him up. Only then did Xiao Yan apologize to Luo Jin. Brother Luo Jin, I have nearly harmed you. It is unexpected that this angry Buddha lotus flame is still so difficult to control even though it already has my spiritual will. Luo Jin smiled with great difficulty. Given his experience, he was naturally aware of just how powerful a high-level Mando technique was. How could it be so easy for Xiao Yan to completely control it? Boom. The two of them had just spoken when the final layer of the lotus core exploded in the empty space hundreds of thousands of feet high. An endless pressure that surpassed the vast and mighty suddenly arrived above the heads of the two of them. This attack would definitely not differentiate between you and me. If they were struck, even Xiao Yan would have difficulty escaping death. Before Xiao Yan could react, the ancient pressure that broke the world had already swept over the spot where the two of them were. The endless abyss had also become even deeper.